My dad was not a man of a lot of words, but was a man of his word. He did not need to say much because most of who he was shown by his actions. He was a giving and caring person who was always the first to lend a helping hand to anyone who needed it. He did not have to be asked. He would just offer or show up. Everybody who he helped was most appreciative because my dad was a jack of all trades. He could build a house from the ground up, tear apart a car engine and rebuild it, but his real passion was woodworking. He could craft beautiful furniture and beautiful pieces of intarsia, which is inlaid wood mosaic pictures. Some of what he would craft, he would donate to different charities to be auctioned off. One thing I did not understand as a young boy was his work ethic and his responsibility to provide for his family. You see, my dad worked 6 days a week. He would be gone before I was up in the morning. He usually did not get home until dinner time. He would have dinner and then take care of whatever needed to be worked on around the house. My dad never had a lot of time to spend with me. He was not always at my games or music performances. We did do a lot of crabbing, fishing, and crawfishing, but most of this was with uncles and cousins. However, there were times when just my dad and I would go crawfishing. This was our time. We would get up before dawn, pack the car, go pick up donuts and chocolate milk from Dunkin' Donuts, drive to wherever the new spot was, set out the nets, then sit down and have our donuts and milk. Not much was talked about, but that was still our time. I did help him do his handy stuff around the house and did not take advantage of that time to talk because at that time it was a burden to me to have to do those things. Moving 800 miles away from my parents was hard, but it did increase the talking that I did with my dad. Every Sunday was when I spoke with him on the phone, and every year going to visit them gave a lot of time to be with him and actually talk. Although he was not an educated man, he was smart and could accomplish anything he set out to do. He was dependable, reliable, kind, and gentle. He would put others' needs before his.
It's okay.
Even in the last months of his life, when he was bedridden, first and foremost concern was my mom's well-being. He did have his faults, but don't we all? We all make mistakes along the way. So I wanted to mention those things that I think made up his core of what he instilled in his children. As it probably was with my dad, as a father myself over the years, I realize what a job it is to raise kids. And for the vast majority of dads, we hope we are doing it. Probably know what I'm saying. We hope we're doing it right and want the best for our kids. Even with the best of dads and moms, some kids just don't get it and end up less than what they could be. If this happens, it's to good dads and moms who wonder what they would have done different or where they went wrong. As far as being a grandfather, right now it's not so much of being any type of father, it's just being grand to them. I guess somewhere along the way, the grandkid's life, they may turn to Papa for guidance. This will probably only happen if Papa shows and lives by good standards, such as my dad did. Happy Father's Day.
Thanks, Joe. You might want to go ahead and mark on your calendars now. We were having a conversation a while back, and evidently one of the things that Joe's father must have done is teach him how to make etouffee and jambalaya, because next Fat Tuesday, we're going to have a meal here at church celebrate Fat Tuesday, and Joe said he's going to be the main cook for that. So go ahead and think about that as we start our meeting. Next up is Jim Johnson.
Thank you very much. Well, I was going to start out by coming up here and singing a verse from Gene Autry's song, That Silver-Haired Daddy of Mine. But I'm going to spare you for that. But it's a funny thing because my father's cousin, Bert Dodson from Oklahoma, played bass fiddle in Gene Autry's band back during the 40s. So there's a little bit of a connection there. And if anyone knew my father, they knew he loved music. He probably could have pursued it as a career, But unfortunately, back when he was growing up, and even more so today, sometimes the musician's lifestyle left a little bit to be desired. And if my father drank 3 beers a year, that was a lot of drinking on his part. He didn't drink, he didn't philander or anything like that. He was always devoted to my mother and myself. He was a wonderful family man, so he didn't quite fit the musician's lifestyle, although he loved music. He could play about any stringed instrument. And I remember back in the late 50s and early 60s, you folks here at Olive Branch used to do musical variety programs. And my father, just living over here on Union Street, I forget who even asked him to play, but he used to play the guitar in the house bands for those programs, and he enjoyed it tremendously. He was also a song leader at the Church of Christ, which is our more conservative cousins. We didn't have instrumental music, but we did have a song leader for each service. He did that on occasion. And my father was a wonderful guitar player. Now me, I play some guitar, but I just play basically what I call hillbilly chords. You know? My father could play, he made up chords. He knew, I don't know how many chords. He even made up chords. He didn't even have names for them. But he was a wonderful rhythm guitar player. Now he never played lead guitar like Chet Atkins or Les Paul. He just played rhythm. But he had impeccable timing, perfect pitch. He could tell if an instrument was out of tune. He could probably tune a piano if he had to. He was just totally devoted to music. Now, he grew up in Tennessee, and his grandfather was supposedly the best fiddler in Warren County, Tennessee. And my dad liked country music. He did like it, and heaven knows he played it. But his love was like the swing music of the Dorsey Brothers, Glenn Miller. He loved Lawrence Welk. He liked swing music. He was a little bit more challenging as a musician. And my father was also, if anyone knew him, he was a wonderful storyteller. He could just hold your attention. He could tell stories. And he told stories about growing up back during the Depression in the country. And some of the things that he and his friends did, if it had been done in the city, they probably would have locked them under the jail. They liked to pull pranks on people. Nobody was ever hurt, but sometimes, there was one story he told about on one Thanksgiving. I think they found some dead pigs and they ended up throwing them through people's open windows. It was a warm night. I won't go any farther than that, but if people did that today, they'd probably lock you in the jail. But he was basically, he told wonderful stories. He never met a stranger. He would talk to a CEO of a corporation or a garbage man. He would talk to anyone. And I was talking to Timmy this morning. He said he remembered my dad used to talk to Timmy's brother Danny. They were pretty close friends. And he talked about my father loved the garden. He grew tomatoes. They were huge. So my father was a wonderful storyteller. But the major thing about my father was that he was a friend. As wonderful as all these other qualities about him, and as entertaining and interesting as it made him, my father was devoted to me and my mother. He was always there. There was always food on the table. There was a roof over my head. There was shelter. I mean, he was just, he was there 24/7. And we never had to worry about him not coming home or not working and trying to provide for us. And yes, I did have my disagreements with him. Who doesn't? I remember back, I grew up in the 60s, and back when I had hair, I liked to grow it a little long. He couldn't stand that. We had our disagreements, but thank God that was water under the bridge, because the love was more important. And I remember that on the night before he passed away, he had been feeling under the weather for a week or so, and he was, I just thought he had the flu, and I went over to check on him. I'd been out on a Wednesday night with some friends, and I went over just to check on him. And I got to the house, and he was sitting at the kitchen table, and he said, "Jim, you've always been good to me." And of course, I thought, great. And then the next day, he just fell over at the kitchen table dead, suddenly of a heart attack. And if I have anything in life to be proud of, I suppose that's him saying that to me before he passed on. I miss him dearly, but I look forward to meeting him again one of these days. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I'm pretty sure nobody would have had a problem if you'd had your guitar and sang to us. And I think next is Bill Streams.
Maybe I should have been first because there's a couple good ones to try to follow here. My father growing up, he grew up on a farm. And that was one thing he said he never wanted to do as a grown-up. So at 14, he became a professional prize fighter. That lasted about 10 years. Well, in that 10 years, he married my mom, and I was born. And when I was born, he decided he was going to quit fighting. So he had a few, he was telling me about some of his boxing episodes. Back then when he was fighting, he fought as a featherweight, but they matched him up with a lot of times fighters that were a lot bigger than he was, a lot stronger. And he'd come out really beat up sometime, and sometimes he was lucky enough to win one. I know he'd tell me he'd hitchhike from the Eastern Shore of Virginia, where I was brought up. He'd hitchhike to Baltimore, which would take him about 5 or 6 hours to good rides. And he'd fight and bring home $15 or $20 because he got that whether he won or lost. And he did that off and on for 2 or 3 years. He went to New York, fought in Madison Square Gardens, and they had a trainer up there that he stayed up there about 6 or 8 months and decided he was going to quit fighting, and that's when he come home. Joined the service, and just soon he got in out of basic, they found out that he was a prize fighter, so that's all he did when he was in the service. Go from one camp to another and did his prize fighting. So he said he didn't go in KP or anything like that. My dad was a sailor. I mean, he liked sailboats. And he and I would go out and sail around. Later on in the years, he bought a catamaran, and we'd sail out on the Chesapeake Bay there. And I had the better part, I had 2 fathers, a stepfather and a father. My dad and mother got divorced when I was 7. And he moved, he bought a house about 2 blocks from where we were living. So I rabbit hunted and sailed with my dad. I goose and duck hunted with my stepfather, and he had an outboard and we did a lot of fishing. So I like to recognize both of them today because I had a good stepfather and I had a good father. The sailing, Dad, like I said, had a catamaran, and we'd go out, spend a day sailing around Chesapeake Bay. And I remember one time I was sorry I went with him because at that time I smoked and I'd run out of cigarettes and his wife then, she smoked. Dad smoked pipes. And I asked Dad, I said, "Has Mary Lee got any cigarettes here on the catamaran?" He says, "No, but I got a pipe over here you can use." And I lit that pipe up, in about 10 minutes, I was sick the rest of the day. I thought I'd never get back to shore. Anyway, I remembered that. And storytelling. Now, Dad, well, he taught me how to fight too, not to be aggressive, but just to defend myself. And that helped a lot in high school. So, I was defending myself. Dad was a great storyteller. He had a habit of telling stories over. And he'd ask me about halfway through, he said, "Have I told you this before?" And I said, "No, Dad," but I'd heard it a dozen times. But anyway, one day he was telling me a story that he kind of got a little bit more into it than I'd heard before. And I'll let him go on a little bit, and I said, "Dad," he said, "What?" I said, "How much of this is the truth?" He looked at me and he said, "Well, most of it." So, but Dad was, he could tell it, he didn't tell one real fast. He drew it out where you could picture everything that was going on. But he was a good storyteller, and he always sang. He'd sing and he'd record his singing. For years I picked up his, after he died, I picked up a lot of his little cassettes, and while I was driving around, I'd play the cassettes and I'd sing with him while he was. But the last wife he had, you could hear him on some of his tapes, he'd be singing along with the radio that he was listening to. He'd be singing along with it, and he was recording, he's singing. And Louise would be in the kitchen, and she'd holler at him, and he'd just keep running on singing. And she'd say, you're going to have another nitro if you don't quit that. And he'd just, "All right, I'm doing all right," and then he'd keep on singing. She'd holler at him, and he wouldn't answer, and holler. And that was all on the tape. I'd get laughing about that. Well, campgrounds, last thing I want to say, he'd travel. He and Louise would travel all the time. He had a camper on his pickup. And it'd take 5 days to get from where we lived in Virginia, which takes me about 14 hours to drive. It'd take him 5 days to get from there to where I was in Greenwood, because he'd pull up to a favorite place was a KOA in West Virginia there at, can't remember the name of the town, but he could get good reception from Pittsburgh. So he'd stay there 2 or 3 days just because the TV was good. And then he'd come, the last time he came out, he called me, and this was about the 5th day, he called me and said, "We'll be in tomorrow." I said, "Well, where are you?" He said, "I'm out here at Mount Comfort, KOA." So Jim and I got in the car, we went out there and spent a couple hours with him, and they come in about 11 o'clock the next morning. He wanted to stay in the camper, so he backed up to the house and wanted to run a cable to his electricity. I said, "Y'all gonna stay in here." So But anyway, my stepfather, he was a trailway bus driver. He was on 4 days, which he was gone. Then he'd have 2 days off. In the summertime, when he'd get home about 2 o'clock in the morning because he'd get on the last bus coming from where he was staying. He was staying in Salisbury, Maryland, which was about 80 or 90 miles from where we lived. And he'd take the last bus out of there going south. And by the time he'd get home, it'd be about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of times, if it was on Saturday or in the summertime, he'd wake me up and ask me if I want to go fishing or something like that, or go hunting. And he'd always, in one breakfast that I will always remember, he got up, he said, "I got breakfast on the table, come on out here." And I sit down, and I thought it was scrambled eggs. And I'm eating this, and they're kind of spicy, and I said, "Where did you put these scrambled eggs?" He said, "Oh, that's not scrambled eggs, that's hog brains." Well, it's the last ones I ever ate. But, and I'll remember that breakfast the rest of my life. He loved that stuff, and I told him, I said, you can have my share.
Yeah.
But both my father and my stepfather were good men. Thank you very much.
It's always one of my favorite times when we have conversations about our fathers and our mothers with Father's Day and Mother's Day. And hopefully for everyone else here, it gives you a lot of insight into the people who talk every year. You get to know a lot more about them, about their family, about their life, the remembrances that they have. And some make us cry and some make us laugh. And those are both good. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing this morning. Our invitational hymn this morning is number 6.